All right, guys, welcome to our reptile lesson. Interesting fact, in the world, there are only 7 different species of sea turtles, and 5 of them are found in Florida. Today, we're going to be learning about different types of reptiles, and you can see in our cladogram that from now on, all these organisms, reptiles, birds, and mammals, have an amniotic egg, and all the other animals did not have an amniotic egg. So, what is an amniotic egg? So, an amniotic egg is an egg that has your embryo. Here's the egg, here's the embryo. And then notice that the embryo, inside the embryo, in this chamber, there is amnion. Amnion is a fluid. It's like water. Is when they say your water broke, that's actually your amniotic fluid. So that allows the embryo to be in an aquatic environment, even though these organisms are on land. Now, fish obviously live in water. Amphibians, because they don't have this adaptation, have to live in water because what happens is because the egg doesn't have an amniotic fluid, the embryo will be in water because the egg is in the water. The egg will also have a yolk sac, which is right here, which provides the embryo with nutrients. It will have allantois, sorry, and the allantois is where the waste is collected from the embryo and during the time of gestation. And then the chorion is a thin, basically membrane that allows for gas exchange. And of course, you have the shell on the outside that protects the organism. Now, the chorion is you probably have seen it. It's like that white paper-like in a regular egg. The outer shell may be different in texture depending on what reptile we are discussing. For example, many of the reptiles have a leathery type outer shell to protect the shell inside, the organism inside, because because the nests may be really far or deep down or whatever. Like for example, for turtles, some of the nests can be after 3 feet in depth, and so it allows the eggs to not break. Another characteristic about reptiles is that they have scales. Now, these scales basically protect them from environments. They can be in the water with the scales, but they can also spend most of their time on land, which is the case for the majority of the reptiles. These scales will shed or molt. So the organism does not grow, the scales don't get larger, they shed. And here's an example of a snake skin being shed because snakes have scales as well. All right, so you probably are familiar with the majority of these reptiles: snakes and lizards and turtles and crocodiles and alligators. So there is another organism called a tuatara. It's right here. It does look like a lizard, but it's a little bit different. It has a third eye here in the middle that detects light, and is only found, they're almost extinct, and they're only found in New Zealand. Another interesting thing about reptiles is that they have this organ called the Jacobsons organ. So if you look in the head and like the rooftop of the mouth, like up here, which is here, you have this organ. So this organ is connected to the nerve endings to the brain, and it basically translates whatever information is picked up with the tongue into a odor. So the way that it works is the snake will take out her tongue. It will move it so that it collects smell particles. It will bring the tongue in, give it to the Jacobsons organs, and the Jacobsons organs will be able to collect the smell. Another interesting thing about reptiles is that they're also ectotherms. So that means remember that they don't control their body temperature. However, and so you notice here this alligator is sunning. So sometimes you go to water systems and you see turtles laying in the sun. You see um, alligators laying in the sun. That's because they are getting the warmth from the sun because they're ectotherms. But they also have something called brumation, and brumation is basically like a hibernation. So the organism will be very cold and the winter, and instead of trying to go to exposed places where it might be in danger of getting hurt or whatever, it will basically bury itself or hide in a very dark, warm place, and it slows down its processes. What does that mean? It's almost as if they go into deep sleep, so they don't use minimal energy, and they will they will then not come out until it gets warm again. Turtles will bury themselves in the ground to during the brumation period, or if they're in the water, they might go into a pond and bury themselves in the mud underneath the pond. So you may be wondering, if that's the case, how would they breathe? The cloaca, which is the butt area of the turtle, has an ability to absorb oxygen through diffusion. So similar of diffusion principles. Another characteristic is reptiles have claws. So you see here a turtle, and at the end of its legs, it has little claws. And some of these are characteristics may not be, some of these claws may not be something that they use anymore. It could be something, a trait that was present a long time ago and is like our tailbone and is slowly disappearing. So in snakes, those claws are found in the middle of the cloaca, like their butt area, and you see these two claws right here. Okay, so a couple of things that we want to talk about snakes to see if you guys know. Fact or fiction? All right. Do you think if you cut a snake in half, both ends will live? That is absolute fiction. Snakes will be killed. They are not they're not able to regenerate. Some snakes are poisonous. Fact or fiction? The answer is fiction. Snakes are not really poisonous. Poisonous means that you eat it and you die because you cannot eat it. Snakes actually have carry venom. So when something is poisonous, it means that you ingest it, then you get sick because you eat it. You can actually eat a snake. But if a snake that carries venom, a venomous snake, bites you, then you can get hurt. So the snake actually has to bite you, like in this case here, in order for it to hurt you. Fact or fiction? A snake the size of you could swallow an entire basketball. And that is fact. The snakes have claws that are not, not claws, jaws that are not attached. So they're two separate. There's the top jaw and the bottom jaw, which is completely separate. So they can actually widen this jaw much bigger than other organisms because the bones are not attached. Snakes can keep you healthy. And that is true because snakes eat a lot of rodents and mice that otherwise would carry diseases like the bubonic plague. So they keep the environment in check by eating things that may be harmful. Snakes are slimy. That is a fiction. They are not slimy like fish. Snakes chase people. That is also fiction. Snakes actually will not attack unless you attack them first. All right, you guys, that's all of our slides for reptiles.